Jenn Wright. I knew Emet through If Not Now. Actually, so we did the If Not Now initial member training together in 2017. We actually arrived at the same time. And I don't really remember that much from that day. It was like a 2 day kind of intensive thing. But I do remember Emet being really smart. That's really the only thing I remember specifically about him from that when I met him. So I don't remember this training super well specifically. I actually went on to be an If Not Now trainer for a couple of years. But I mean, this was so long ago. I had been recruited in by another trainer at my ex's birthday party, I think. And I am a Jewish person who believes that Palestine should be free. And it seemed, especially in 2017, there weren't as many organizing spaces devoted to that really specific intersection of identity and politics. So it was cool to get to see other people who were kind of in that headspace. It was so, I mean, at this point, 8 years ago or something, so I don't really remember specifics. Under the momentum organizing model, which was the same model employed by Cosecha and I think the Sunrise Movement, it was definitely very strategic, very scripted kind of way to bring people in with a lot of thought going into how do we want to talk to people about their Judaism and about their relationship to Israel and Palestine. It was something that definitely appealed to me as somebody who grew up in a very Jewish home and a very Jewish school and had a lot to do with personal experiences and relaying stories and experiencing resonance with other people. We have a similar experience. This is how I landed where I am, and kind of bringing people in through that kind of psychological comfort with the idea that you are not alone. And then kind of using the moment of the whirlwind, these really important galvanizing moments, organizing time, such as in 2017, we really capitalized on like Steve Bannon becoming a national figure. We capitalized on an APAC conference. We did a lot around very particular events in Jewish community and kind of use those as opportunities to say, hey, if you are experiencing dissonance with this as well, so are we, and you may want to get involved with our movement. Yeah, I mean, it was very organizer forward, right? Give people a job and give people a task. I think it's no coincidence that a lot of the people that were involved in this were Jewish organizers and faith-based organizers really specifically, because it had the ability to like tie in those threads of Jewish learning, Jewish history, and also the history of queer death. And AIDS activism was something that I was thinking a lot about in that time. Basically, what are the legacies that we're looking at as we try to support someone through a self-directed dying process?
Yeah, did you know that the hospice center that he passed away in was actually started for AIDS victims?
I found that out later, but I wasn't surprised given that a lot of AIDS activism in the early 90s happened in Graduate Hospital. So it was something that
Mm.
I was like kind of familiar with. I've been involved in the world of HIV and AIDS since like 2011. So that's kind of my personal organizing impetus in the world. And I still work with an organization that works with not primarily, but substantially people living with HIV and AIDS.
One of the things I'm modeling this project on is the ACT UP World History Project.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think that so I was a person who ended up doing a lot of the visuals. So if you see I think it says Truth and Justice, that poster that everybody wrote on.
Right, the
Yeah, the
banner.
banner. I made the banner.
Wow, wow. I
So
didn't know
like,
that.
yeah, so when I made the Truth and Justice stuff, I modeled it after Gil Sans MS, which was the font chosen by ACT UP. And similarly, I actually made the Living Funeral program and used Gil Sans throughout it, kind of an homage.
Yeah, I
I
have
did
that.
work on the living funeral also. I did a lot less interpersonal in the room stuff and more background-y kind of stuff. I have to say that probably of the people that were most involved in this stuff, I probably didn't know Emet as well as most of them. Like we were in the same organizing spaces, but I wouldn't say that we were close. And there was always for me an inherent tension of Emet as we were figuring out who would be sleeping overnight and covering those shifts, doing the work of care. I never thought that it really should be me because we were never close. And kind of the way that I landed here in a lot of ways was just in general the model of community care. This is a person in my community and what would I want to see out of the world? But really, I mean, he passed in 2019, right? Like, right before the pandemic. I had known a lot of people who had passed from fentanyl ODs. And I had seen a lot of people who died on terms that were not their own at all. I mean, people were not in meaningful control of their death. And it felt to me like an opportunity to use a lot of the organizing, like the queer community, to show up for somebody who was getting to make choices for themselves. And so for me, I had some fair amount of basic background knowledge in organizing and some really specific event planning experience. So I was like, well, this is how I can be a part of this. It's a very, I think it's probably for a lot of people a very different time in their lives. It's been very weird to think of the world that we were living in 2019 and the person that I was and the people that we were with, kind of microcosm of the world of caring for a mat, which was a lot of people doing a lot. And a lot of times organizing is a lot of people doing a small thing, but it was a lot of people taking on a really meaningful, emotional, and time related and skills related commitment to a single person, which I haven't seen anything like that really since. It's weird to think about. I mean, I don't live in Philadelphia anymore, and I know that a lot of people who were kind of instrumental in the organizing process live nowhere near Philly anymore.
Exactly.
And this idea of the transient community that really only existed for a couple of months, really. I think I mean, there's a lot of different models of consensus-based organizing, right? And I think it's interesting to think of a really such a defined number. Well, I mean, if not now, it was kind of a really big and sprawling organization at the time. I'm no longer affiliated for a handful of reasons, but still believe in the mission. But I think that I don't actually know like, that we got in Philly for people agreeing on a whole lot. Um, but it was really, this kind of became the focus of that community for a long time because it's like the obvious thing to do. Yeah, I it just felt like that, of course, this is what we were gonna do. Which is again crazy to think about in retrospect. I mean, I understand, and I think we would probably all make a decision similar to that again, but it's just, I guess it really kind of speaks to the people that were involved at that time. I mean, we were the kind of the core organizers, if not now. And so we were good at knowing each other's strength. We'd already been working together on stuff. We kind of knew who was likely to do pastoral stuff and who was kind of more logistics and who kind of was going to be better able to emote in a way that would be helpful. And I think that we did a pretty good job of either self-selecting or suggesting. I remember there were a lot of texts saying, can you do X or can you do Y? Organizers are very good at just badgering until somebody does something because you need to do it. And that was definitely a feature of this experience was just badgering and needling. I remember when we were planning the living funeral, it was in December. So shortly after Emet had entered hospice, we had no idea how much time there was. And he was still, I mean, I think he was primarily fed through a G-tube for a really long time, but he could still take some food by mouth. And he really liked Shake Shack milkshakes. And there was a Shake Shack nearby, but nobody really had a car to go get it because we were all 20 somethings living in Philly. And I called them and asked, can you deliver? And they were like, no, not really. And I was, do you have any delivery partners? And they were like, no, not really. And I was like, oh, it's really a shame because I need this for a funeral. And then they had a staff member walk 20 milkshakes in tiny cups over or something like that. It was just everybody using the levers they had. I mean, It was definitely a room full of type A self-starters, which I think is kind of somewhat by chance, but also kind of those are the kinds of people that stay in organizing when everybody else in the room is also a chaotic 20 something. I think that I definitely was looking to people who were closer to Emet to figure out, is this actually what this person wants? Because I don't think I had enough of a sense of when we do something for somebody who wants a very self-directed experience, you have to make sure their wishes are heeded. And I remember really specifically, I remember at one point or another getting the direction, can you filter this through somebody else because Emet is busy dying, which is not an easy thing to do and requires a lot of physical energy. The dying process is expensive. And so we did have some level of, for people who, like me, were a little bit more separated from Emet, people who felt empowered to kind of speak on his behalf when he was not able to necessarily articulate what he wanted. And I think that that speaks to the level of self-determination that Emet was able to create in medical planning. In I remember even for the living funeral when Emet I think survived another like 3 months after that or something like that. He wasn't really involved in that, but all of his friends were. And they had enough of a sense of what was going on that they could tell me and the other person. There was a rabbinical student involved whose name I don't know that I remember.
Is it Eli?
Yeah, I think so. Who I also don't think knew Emet as well. And we were kind of like, well, there are plenty of people to ask who he's made his wishes known to. Something that I've kind of been thinking about similarly is when you are a person who has a disability at the age of, did Emet pass at like 24?
Yeah.
There's a lot of medical providers that are going to be, you're 24, you're fine. And clearly Emet was very not fine. I imagine that. And again, I've worked in healthcare for 10 years. I'm lucky to work for a place that I think does better with this, but it's always complicated. When somebody is young and has a lot of medical need, they really need to advocate for themselves. And when they are young and have a lot of medical need outside of the healthcare profession, they really have to advocate for themselves. And I think that Emet had largely for worse, a lot of experience with being able to articulate and express wishes in ways that were really helpful to everybody who was involved in the process. Oh, the Harry Potter party. Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about this day?
So I will tell you that I have never read, I think I read one Harry Potter book in elementary school. I don't know anything about Harry Potter, but I just remember, I don't remember if it was a birthday, a holiday. Like, I just don't remember what this was for, but I just remember it being very silly. And hospital is not typically what you would associate with silly. So this idea of constructed place, I think, is really interesting. It was a very improbable setting for a place where a lot of people were laughing. And I think it's kind of cool. That was a thing that you could do. The idea of a force of people that are transforming space it's interesting to me in retrospect. Even at the time, I don't really think I was thinking about it because we were all just in the moment. Oh, I was back when AC Moore was in Center City, and I remember texting my ex, what are the what are the decorations you buy for a living funeral?
The kind of person
who wants to go with the flow and fit in.
wants to grow and fit in.
I'm an agitator.
I'm an agitator.
I'm opinionated.
I'm opinionated.
I'm a libertine.
I'm a libertine
And a leader.
and a leader.